Hey, hi guys. How's it going? How's everything? You know me, I it's didn't really feel like I wanted to address anything on this because it's not a community thing. It's a mind thing. And I've been kind of explaining it on multiple facets, So it just kind of feels a bit redundant, yet at the same time I fully understand that, like, especially when it comes to understanding the mind aspect of it, the mind body soul connection, that shit hasn't been told or explained to us early on. So getting a grip on it, like later on in life, it's all doable. It's just new. And to get that grip on that mind body spirit complex or combination, whatever you want to call it, later on, to fully get those nuances, it takes the time it takes. And in a reactionary situation like the bombardment that's been happening for 2012, it's a bit tricky. I won't lie, it is a bit tricky. It takes the time it takes, and if you're assaulted by distractions, it makes your game straight up Dark Souls. It makes your game straight up any fighting game on level 9 and you getting to the final boss or even pre-final boss. It just makes that much of a bit of a, in a separate, just for clarity in aspect, it makes it a trickier game than if you had time to just pace yourself, listen to this stuff, not get distracted by whatever stuff is being thrown at you to get you to react, and then to get you to lose your focus on what you were trying to study or practice. And yeah, it's tricky, especially when it comes to terminologies as well. But one thing to always remember: this is your life. You take control of your life when you take the time to look at these things, to go within, to do the inner work. You are the only one that can do it for your own life, because the granularity of your experience, everything that has happened to you, how it got you to think, change thought as well, who you met. You'll never have the same best friend. And you can go even more granular in this aspect. You'll never ever experience the same scene as someone else. Different angles, different points of view, different wind or reaction to the wind, different memories that are popped up or reactions from various other memories. So that inner work is your own thing. It's your own, let's say, it's not a task. You could see it as a task, but it doesn't really feel that well when you call it a task. It's more so like it's your God-given system in a way, especially when it comes to the mind. So if you're not gonna take the time to get a handle on your mind and not let yourself get reaction, and then your power of focus, to focus on a goal or on something that you want to do, it's GG, it's gone. Because the mind will literally react to whatever kind of stimulus is thrown your way. What I was referring back at the beginning of this video, saying that this is I'd basically be saying the same thing, is because what's been happening with the media, especially when it comes to Black Lives Matter, I've said that a couple of years ago, but now, with this understanding of quantum meditation and the mind, it's like it's much more obvious. It's reaction. It's reaction to an incident that's not even in your current vicinity. Okay? It's not even next to you. And when you're prone to that, to reacting to something that's not even next to you, your attention is caught onto it. You'll think about it. You'll check the blog post. You'll check everything about it. Well, guess what? While you're caught in that reaction, because you didn't choose to respond, responding would have been, okay, well, how do I feel about this? Why do I feel this way? And then what are my multiple options to respond? And we'll get to that in a bit. Yet, you go upon a reaction, you're not focusing on what you want to create. You're not focusing on what you want to do. You're not focusing on what you want to feel or what you love to feel. You know? Because you could do it all in the moment. Yet, right then and there, out of nowhere, a reaction. Some news happened. Oh my God, this happened with a person that's not even near me. I don't even know the person. I have absolutely no momentum of thoughts of that person. Because remember, the granularity of it is important. Just like your life. It's important to everyone's, to everyone's life. If you're going to start ignoring everyone else's granularity of experience leading up to a context and an action, then you're going to ignore your own. You're not going to take your own as valuable as it is. And that's a big problem. Because you ain't going to create what you want to create. You're not even taking notes of the granularity of your experience. What made you think a certain way and how you can change that. Because you didn't choose. There's multiple things that when we think about it, okay, and we look through our thoughts, we didn't fucking choose. Because why would you choose X, Y, Z? And the same goes for everyone else. Remember, we all came here with this blank hard drive, blank computer hard drive. And then it got filled up with our environment, so parents, social aspect of it, whatever we learn from the news, whatever we learn from cartoons as well. That whole environment, subconsciously, 0 to 9, you just eat it. You just eat it because you don't have cross-reference point. So you just eat it. And that includes the habit of reacting. Because let's face it, let's look at it, okay? When it comes to our parenting, and it's not an aspect of finger pointing and an aspect of shame. No, this is just consciously looking at it and going, okay, this is what happened and this is what it created. When it comes to the verbal abuse, when it comes to the physical abuse that often happens in the community, that shit is what's fucking with the mindset completely. Because it's, when it comes to that, when you really go back to that, okay, and again, not finger pointing and not shaming, just understanding what happened. If a parent saw you do something that they deemed wrong, okay, deemed, because it all comes from one perspective, one point of view, one projector, one lens, one hard drive, okay? The ones and zeros of that hard drive. So 1, okay, that's good. 0, bad. Bad equals blah, 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 blah. Good equals blah, 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 okay? But then they reacted to you doing something that they deemed bad. But you didn't fucking know. You were learning. You were learning certain things. You're learning through life every step. Yet right then and there, you're getting somebody reacting to your learning procedure, your learning steps, instead of responding. So reacting with verbal and physical abuse or any kind of taunting, that kind of stuff. Well, eventually you kind of learn that this is a behavior that is normal. Because if your parents are doing it and they are the almighty authority from 0 to 9, some people just get out earlier. Some people do, but you learn that from that authority figure, this kind of behavior, reacting to someone else, okay? Reacting, not responding, reacting to what is deemed from inside the mind as wrong by someone else, even though the deeming of the wrong doesn't take into account the context that this person is learning. See what happens? It doesn't take in consideration, because if it was in consideration, it's like, oh, you're learning. Okay, let me try and help you on this. Much more compassionate, much more understanding. But reaction, reaction, reaction. So over time, it is, subconsciously, you just eat that shit up. And it's like, oh, well, it's normal to react to that. It's normal to react. When parents were talking about gossip and they were reacting or sniping comments at the person that was kind of involved but not there, that became normal. But it's not. Because when you understand the granularity of your own context, I can't say, oh, you definitely have studied this or should know that or should know that. I can't. I don't know your context. It's so granular. I can't even just attempt to do like a rough, super rough like breakdown of multiple things. No, I got to keep it somewhat rather general, and even then I have to be very careful when I keep it general not to make assumptions, but basically go with the general assumption that you don't know what you don't know. Know what I mean? Not going into specific assumptions like you definitely know this piece of knowledge. No. Or you should, again, the shoulds and shouldn't. Wipe that out from the dictionary. You can't go back in time. Unless you do your visualization or possible time machine, but who the fuck goes into that? We'll learn about this technology later on, possibly. But so you get the sense that being subconsciously trained to react early on makes it look normal later on. It becomes normal to react like that. It becomes normal to hear people about gossiping and reacting. It becomes normal to react to the news that's not even near your vicinity, to which you don't necessarily even have the same granularity of context which you do for your own life, to the degree that you pay attention to it. Because if you don't pay attention to it, then you're missing out on all this juice of creation that you can. It's going to take a bit to explain, but basically once you understand the granularity and nuances of your own context and experiences, so understanding what led to what created what kind of thought momentum which led to what, you can just take that and switch it around. Because you understand, oh shit, I took that meaning which created this thought momentum at the time because I didn't select, maybe you didn't respond, you reacted based on what was told or known at the time. But that's just the mind. You ain't the mind. You don't need to run with the hard drive or to let it run on its own. You can take control of it and make it your best friend. That's what they say. You don't kill the ego. You make it your best friend because it's part of the all. And I guess this is where we kind of just get into something that kind of needs to be acknowledged. But to its own time, at its own due date. So it's not you need to acknowledge it now! But it is a concept that, again, if we knew it early on, the momentum of knowing this gets you so much more richness in life because you're paying more attention to it. Okay? And it's this important part that we are all one. And this goes a bit deeper. So whoever is still stuck in religion might straight up tune out, because oftentimes when you're stuck in one single ideology or one single religion, one single philosophy, and one single way of seeing things, it just blocks as a wall. It's like a subconscious wall. But it was told in various texts. Again, you look at various religions, we're all practically saying the same thing. The only thing that's keeping us in separation are people in power who don't necessarily want to cross-check various other religions to understand or play with this. It's like this the old school aspect of, I am this, I am only this, and I will not move away from this. Okay, but once you look at various other things, you kind of get the little lines of, yeah, we're all one. Because when you understand you're not the brain, when you understand that the brain just accumulates shit from when you're born to now, okay? And this also includes the subconscious repetition that you're not necessarily taking note of, but subconscious repetitions that can cause you to think a certain thing about the world. Go check out that video I made about the interpretation of you create your own reality, because it does, now looking back at it, it does have to do with a lot of subconscious ingestion. If I keep telling you this is how the world is, and I keep repeating over and over and over, then you eventually think, okay, well, this is how the world is. Kind of like if you were born in a family that just kept talking about poverty, from that early age, that early on, you'll keep that in mind, but then you encounter a different set of thinking patterns, okay? Exterior, you encounter a different group of people, and you start noticing, wait a second, there's more to it, there's more to that, there's more to, let's say, the 9 to 5 to earn a revenue, a revenue that I want. No, there's more than that. Does that mean there's more than simply get the diploma, get a degree, no, there's definitely more than that. But you wouldn't know if you stayed in that initial environment, with that same subconscious blast. That initial environment, it's not like they wanted to. Again, it's not a finger pointing and blaming thing. It's knowing that you don't know what you don't know, and you kind of understand the habits that are being transmitted indirectly, and not consciously. Because again, conscious, unconscious, you don't know. When it comes to conscious, 10 steps ahead, what is this thought going to create? It's tricky, really tricky, and now we're getting more understandings of that. But you kind of understand this subconscious repetition and how various types of and different kind of subconscious repetition can change your state and your vision of the world. Another example would be, again, like I always say, athletes. They do this visualization, there's reprogramming, they get mental diet because they understand that their subconscious is really, really important for their career and what they want to do. The very same process and principle that you use, you apply to everything else. So if you're going to get brainwashed by the news into thinking separation while all is one, you're going to feel it, but you're going to repeat over and over thinking that it's the other person's fault, that it's the opposition's fault, that it is the enemy's fault. As soon as you do that, the karma is always active in you. And different explanation or take on karma, mostly your thoughts are always going to, or most often are going to be pointed in this direction because there's an opposition, there's an enemy, you got to watch out. Your thought is always going to bring a specific view on said opposition from the hard drive, not necessarily from the soul. The soul is going to give you warnings whenever you feel that little heart space going. That's separation from you and everyone at the same time, paradoxically. So you're going to get little hints. Yet if you've been trained, okay, in this aspect of considering a reaction, considering those normal, that little feeling won't mean shit to you, and you'll probably associate it to the exterior person, which is how we kind of got trained with this verbal abuse and physical abuse. Once you are taught separation so subtly, it becomes normal. You feel like that, you feel angry, it's got to be the other person. Yet, again, hard drive, ones and zeros, what's the rule set and value that has you acting this way? And then, whenever you spot yourself pointing at someone else, use the mirror technique. Set up a mirror. If I was pointing at someone else that way, okay, how would it feel if someone else would point it back at me that exact same way with that exact lack of context granularity of my life? How would it feel if I was pointing at a general, if that was coming right back at me, and I used to point at a general mass, and now it's coming right back at me. Some person's pointing at my general mass, okay, or ethnicity, or whatever, How would it feel on the reverse? While that person has no idea about my history, my story, my personal livings, my thinking pattern, my desires, all of that granularity, okay? How would I feel? Would feel like shit. It's like this person doesn't even know me, but they're labeling me. Okay, so don't fucking do it. Because it's just goes on a momentum, right? Plus you just, as I said, the karma stays. So your thoughts link to feelings as well, because if you think negatively about your enemy, you're the only one feeling it, and you're the only one bringing that back. And guess what? Throughout all that time, you're still not thinking about what you want to create, what you want to grow, what you desire, and what you want to accomplish, right? And here's another sneaky trap. Because of the mind with its ones and zeros, you might try to go there, and then it'll go, oh, I can't because of this ethnicity. Oh, I can't because this, me as a person, XYZ identity, I can't do that because label, Fuck off. You take that part of the brain and just go, fuck off. Literally. Because you just shut down your plan out of just thinking. You see how important this shit is? Some kind of rule sets and value was told to you by someone else or a group of people based on their own experience and context, which is how they formed how they formed their analysis on what happened. Okay? It's kind of like understanding that they formed a specific analysis on what happened and then they just kept repeating it, thinking, okay, this is how life is on this subject. But you're repeating it with how it was at that time. You're repeating the thought, the memory, with the same emotion and implication that it had at that time. That time is different from now. Be careful. Be careful. See, that's how you get stuck in the past. You've ever faced certain parents that would constantly go into an aspect of drama, or would kind of bring back certain memory, or talk about certain things over and over and over, some bad incidents. That's the trap. That's the advanced level of the trap. Not only is your mind not even your own at that point because it's your memories, but then those fucking memory files are coming up and just with the same kind of intensity and emotion that was then are being played now. Why are you playing that time's memory? You've grown, you've changed, you evolved, right? But when you don't pay attention to it, you don't necessarily pay attention to the granularity of your experience, and you don't pay attention to your growth, because your growth is very fucking important, well then that kind of shit happens. You know, and you can so easily be pulled into each and every direction, because it's like, okay, you're prone to reacting? Cool, let me put something that's gonna have you react. Oh, this is happening over in this country. This means all of this, you know. And even worse, now you get the hashtags. Let me give you the hashtag to have you react. Let me have you some more Twitter news with some video clips to have you react to an event that's not even next to you, to a context that you'll never know, to a momentum of thought that you'll never know, so you'll never learn and grow. You'll never learn and grow at that point, because you'll never have the context. You'll never know the journey. It's important as fuck, especially when you create. You start going into creation. It's kind of like saying, I wish I could talk about music creation, because it would be a terrific example. It's kind of like fuck. I could do it better for art, but not for music creation. It's all the same kind of principle, but it's kind of like saying, when it comes to art or making a drawing, okay? The context and the granularity of it all, of one's own experience, is super important, because it also influences the style, the preferences, what is loved, and what essence kind of comes out of it. So if you just don't necessarily pay attention to it as, you know, you as an artist, then you kind of fall into generic stuff, and you don't necessarily go into your aspect of passion. You know, you're not paying attention to what do you like, why do you like it, why is it fun for you, is it a manual thing, or is it an essence thing? Is it a technique thing, or is it a thinking thing, an essence thing? You know what I mean? Like, you don't necessarily pay attention to any of that, and your thinking remains a bit simple. Gotta take out laundry, but whatever. Your thinking becomes a bit more simple. Thus, at that point, you're missing all that juice of creation, which could make your artwork or whatever craft you do even better, because you actually know what you like, where did you pick up certain pieces of inspirations, why, other inspirations that are linked to it with the exact same or close by why, the variations that you can do, and you can pull out all of that in your mind easily when you practice the focus. But when you're taught to be reactionary, again, the parents didn't necessarily know. We're all starting to understand this stuff by pulling in our information, various practice, various countries pulling in this information. We're getting to that understanding, and we're getting to making it much easier. Which brings to another point. Please eliminate the word and the definition cultural appropriation from your mind. It is a trap. It is a virus. Because at that point, you wipe out what was just explained. And when you do that, when you don't acknowledge that we can all pull in information, we can all pull in practices, and by doing so, we evolve it. We evolve them all, okay? If you don't necessarily get that, you're going to end up just like religion, which is dying because it is only staying on one method, one way, one ideology. While the irony is, we're all still playing Babel's Tower in 2020. We're all saying the same thing with different practices and with different definitions. But those who are sticking to that, it's gone. It's GG. It's just like an artist that won't take from multiple sources and multiple perspectives to create. It's the same thing with your life. It's the exact same thing. If you're not going to blend all that from multiple points and you're going to remain stuck in an aspect of an identity, doesn't matter which religion, this is where, or which nation or which race, this is where I break the video title. Pia should have punched down. It doesn't matter. Whatever individual sticks to one ideology, one religion, one method, one practice, GG, game over. Their creation power is lowered and thinned out. And then they get mad and then they blame the world. It's the cycle. It's a loop that stays because of the mindset. And being taught that way. And funny enough, you can kind of look back at certain parents which would stick to, okay, well, this is my career. I fought hard to get that paper. I will only stick to that. This is my identity. And then they kind of get a bit miserable from time to time. Certain people can play with it well, or certain people won't necessarily show it or admit to it. All of that is a mind thing. Because when you're being honest with yourself, you're able to ask those questions, go deeper, and kind of also understand this interconnection aspect of it all, right? If you're going to block yourself off, or if you're going to block off your success, you're going to block off your happiness, you're going to block off your mental happiness, okay, in general, or just general happiness, because of an aspect of race, identity, country, or sex or whatever, GG, you're done, game over, bye. I'm talking to the rest. I'll be talking to the rest, and it's not just to throw you away, it's just to kind of hammer that point, to just be like, well, yeah, your mind's going to keep yourself on that loop. Your creation soup is going to be more like a broth than a complete soup, because you won't have that many ingredients. And you'll constantly stay in that loop of just blaming others. And guess what? That little feeling, whenever you feel it, that's always telling you you're separating yourself from yourself and everyone else. All is one. All is one. There's a point in your understanding of the inner work, which is why it's important. Again, can't stress it enough. Don't necessarily want to stress it. I want to tell you, make it a game. Play with this. But the inner work teaches you all this aspect of things. Once you go deeper into asking, okay, why do I think like this? What happened? When did this begin? What's the momentum of thought? Do I actually want to choose this, Do I actually want to choose this knowing that if this is reflected back onto me, I wouldn't necessarily like it, Because you can't take that choice. Some people do. People in power. Especially when it comes to those fuckers that set up those traps early on 2020, right? Go back to that video. They made the choice. They know what they're doing. So they'll get the karma. And, when it comes to that, that's why I say don't even see them as enemies. Because you can understand how they're doing their own karma. It's not even belittling them and go, oh, too bad. You're just going to keep yourself in your own loop. No, it's literally, fuck, you're stuck in this loop. You've kind of been groomed by a generation of family, when it comes to the high and mighty aspect of things. You've been groomed like that. You didn't necessarily take the choice. And now you're on this momentum you didn't necessarily chosen, stuck with those thoughts that will actively fuck with you. Because if I need to control the population to feel great, life forfeited. You need someone else. It'd be great to have a collaboration with someone else. No, I need it. If this person's not doing this, GG, done, over. Because it's always going to come up. There's always going to be a need for someone else to be a certain way. There's always going to be a need for that power. Instead of just understanding, you've got power of creation. You've got fucking powers of creation. You can create project, you can create craft, you can even recreate yourself, pop star style. Like it is. We've taken it for granted, and admittingly, we weren't necessarily taught well about that. Like, especially in the West, imagination is like a throwaway word practically compared to the vastness that it brings. I love Eastern terms when it comes to that, and I'll set up a list when it comes to that and bring that up on camera. Because honestly, and referring back to the trap video, when you understand that your imagination is practically everything, even when you say memory is still an imagination. The only separation is the repetition of that memory, which makes it easier to bring it up. But the thing is, you're not experiencing it in the now, you're still feeling the feelings in the moment, and every repetition imprints it on you in the mind. So it's still imagination. Hell, whenever you bring up a trauma, kind of react to something because of a trauma, it's still imagination. So that shit is important, really important, and you can use it to your advantage, or you can let yourself get used to react and then fall into someone else's plan and then completely lose track of your own focus, your own determination, your own abilities, and then allow the mind to use excuses, sneaky little process excuses, whenever you would try to go back to what you want to create. It will just go, oh, I can't because this. Oh, I can't because of this political reason. Oh, I can't because that. While in reality, you can. Because you say you can't, you can't. But when you say that you can. It's all in the mind. Like I say, use your cheat code. What would it feel if I already completed it? What would it feel if I already achieved it? What would it feel if I was feeling that in a moment? You know? It's the same trick. It's the same thing. Yet if you're being told that you are not able to achieve this because of XYZ bullshit drama, your brain is still gonna gobble it up. And if you repeat this becomes your set standard, and GG. You know, you'll have to clean it up. And all of this can be cleaned up. It's just, are you gonna take the time, or are you gonna be stuck with the excuses that you didn't necessarily choose? You took it from someone else, and it's sneaky. It's really sneaky. Because we think that we would... You'd think initially how we were kind of pushed, this aspect of the family, you'd think it wouldn't be a double-edged sword, but it is, in a way. This aspect of community and family. And this is not just black community. This is all kind of communities, all nations, all humans, okay? But oftentimes, depending on your environment, if you're too, going and preaching this aspect of we are family, but then your family environment isn't necessarily teaching you great subconscious behaviors and subconscious aspects, or just aspects towards each other. And you can, again, it's not finger pointing, it's just understanding they don't know what they don't know, but at the same time, you won't know what you won't know, and you'll be led to that same kind of thinking pattern. Again, the mirror exercise, always asking yourself, back and forth, how would it feel if I would receive this from the same level of lack of context, because we don't know each other's context. Our granularity of experience is so fucking minute and nuanced. It's rich, but we won't fucking know each other's context because it's so detailed. So we can't assume, and that goes deep. Which is why when you do that inner work, you'll get to understand all is one. And all of that kind of becomes a bit more natural. And then it becomes a game of spotting whenever you react. And then you kind of go, okay, why am I reacting? My brain perceives that this is that. Okay, based on which event? Based on where did I learn about this? Based on when did I learn about this? How often did that momentum go? Okay, or how often did that momentum run? And also, crucial question, from that initial point and that momentum, how did my perception of reality change? Because like I mentioned in the whole trap, how we got played, well, out of nowhere, just because I heard about that news, my perception slightly changed. My interactions and feeling with certain people slightly changed, because it's like, they may have heard that news, okay, I don't necessarily want to be too upfront on certain things, maybe they're affected. And it's like, well, I didn't fucking need to think about that. And that was just randomly off catching something on Twitter, just randomly catching on. I'm logging on, trying to post, but then I catch something. And then voila, perception of reality changed to the minute details. And you don't want to be anal about it, but you also want to take in consideration the minute, what that does to the minute details of it. Again, subtle perception, subtle feeling, but that has a momentum, which leads to bigger things. So before getting caught into that storm, I'm like, all right, that happened, shut off. And I don't go back to it. Don't have context, don't have anything. I was, instead of reacting to the reaction or reacting to whatever, I just kind of went, okay, well, don't necessarily want that. Plus, I don't. When I understand that, and I understand that I'm in charge of what I have within at this point, because if you go into the blaming, GG, you're done. You're always going to be blaming, and you're not going to grow. But when you just go, okay, you take responsibility for it, even though it's not, you didn't consciously select it, but you just take responsibility for it, and just kind of go, okay, well, let me change, because my output, even if it's something that kind of comes in from someone else, my output is still going to affect the other people. And what do I want to output that I would want to receive? Fun, playfulness, knowledge, understanding, joy, great creation, like this aspect of cooperative creation, evolving concept, evolving oneself, evolving ideas, gathering multiple ideas as well, and concepts and philosophies, discoveries for each and every one of us, not some news trash drama, blah, which you don't learn. You don't learn anything compared to the learning that you do in your inner work, or just evolution of ideas. You don't learn shit from drama or TMZ or that kind of stuff, or the news. You don't learn squat. So you'll grow a taste from it, because it's like, oh fuck, every day is kind of like a day that you grow in so many aspects when you pay attention to it, and when you're not blocked by those subconscious aspects. But it's an individual journey. You can't 100% rely on anyone else than yourself when it comes to that. You're the only one who can spot those granularities within and knows your own experience and what changed. So take that at heart. Don't take it for granted. This literally creates you, how you react, how you respond, what your mood is, your general flow, day per day per day. So when you get a hold of that while doing that inner work, you take that time off, no notification, don't get distracted, okay? When you take that time, you notice this, you grow more appreciative of yourself in all events, good, bad, positive, negative. You'll see it's all part of the all, and it all kind of helped you to this point where you're gonna take that decision. Do I want to take control of my life, or do I just want to continue reacting? Doesn't matter what kind of nation, race, ethnicity, gender, it doesn't matter. Are you going to let the brain use its ones and zeros? It's trying, it does its best, okay? But are you going to let it run your life like a robot with ones and zeros that you didn't necessarily choose? Or are you going to take the controller, be the soul, play with the mind-body-soul context, and say, okay, I want to direct my life this way because I would feel like this, like this, like this. And you play with this because it'll change naturally. You're ever evolving. You're constantly evolving. That's another thing that happened with the parenting. When you were kind of said, okay, you've got to be doing this. This is the way I want you to be, and you got to behave like this. You got to be seen like this. No evolution. You're an evolution machine. You can't stick to one thing. You'll feel miserable. Your body's gonna react to the anxiety that it's gonna create. It's gonna fuck around with yourself. You're gonna stay stuck in that loop of finger pointing over to another instead of kind of understanding. So you've got choice. It's in your hands. You choose. But don't let yourself be dragged by group thinking. Don't let yourself be dragged by separation thinking, okay? Do not let yourself be, because at the end, the karma is still in you. And that karma is within the thought that's getting repeated, that it influences your mood, as well as your how prolificent or how proficient, fuck it, I don't have the English term for it, how good you are at creating your own shit, because you won't be distracted, right? Group mentality also adds the other sneaky deaky thing of, oh, if you're not going to follow us, then you're an enemy. And then if your mind is still stuck with that old ones and zeros reacting to reactions, then you might think, oh, well, I don't want to, I'm not an enemy. I'm not an enemy to anyone. The reaction that happens there is not because you're not an enemy. It's because you're being labeled that, but you're not. So you don't have to take that moniker, nor do you have to be bullied into taking the moniker or taking the opposite label. You don't have to be bullied to be shoved into an identity label or jar. Okay? Those who will kind of go, okay, well, it's only this, and if you're not following us, then you're the end. They're stuck with their own karma, and you can already see how that happens, how that behavior runs. They're stuck with ones and zeros, allies and enemy, oppositions. And then, guess what? They may think, they may think, and consider this, okay? This is the last bit I'll add to it. They may think they're helping others in that aspect, but we just went through what it does to the mind and how it gets you to react. So unfortunately, they're doing the opposite. And especially, remember, when you're in that group mentality and you see an opposition, okay? And it's not a clearly defined opposition. It's kind of general. Oh, this race. Yeah, definitely this race. And you kind of fire your guns blazing of arguments and shouting and finger pointing at them. Well, when you catch the person that wasn't even part of it, that has no idea of any kind of all this context, well, you're playing this coin toss game of them either not being in the mind and kind of going, oh, this is happening, and understanding all of this and just kind of going along their way. Or you land on the other side of the coin of them going, fuck this, first time I encounter some of you people, but you're all a bunch of assholes. You've just reflected back the general finger pointing right back at yourself. Created a new enemy that you're going to fight. It's been happening. It doesn't matter which ethnicity. It could be Black Lives Matter. It could be fucking PETA, because we've noticed it. But notice these things. Don't just go with the general terms, okay? Could be PETA. It could be any other militant protesting organization. The results are the same. I noticed this even when marching with the red squares, and then we had black blocks coming in, fucking around with people's shit, breaking people's car. Absolutely no value for what's going on in the mind, and then that coin toss, right? Of course, implanted people as well. You know, it's like, no idea, but it's like, it's done righteously. Don't fall for that trap, because the karma still stays with you. It doesn't matter. You're not going to go, oh yeah, a couple of years later. No. The karma is still there. You're still flipping that coin toss. So you want to do this in a unity method. You really want this unity aspect of it. Go back to the beginning of the video. Understand how you're not your mind. Understand how we've kind of been playing this aspect of mind versus mind versus mind, of mind reacting to mind, and understand how once you kind of drop out of it, there's much less of that. Way less of that. You're not running on ones and zeros that will have you just, this needs to be this way, this needs to be this way, this person needs to be this way. No. You understand you've got the power internally. Everyone does. It's just we've been told the opposite. We've been told the opposite. Because they didn't fucking know. We didn't pull in that all that philosophy, that technology, that understanding. It didn't pull it at high speed until this era, until this time, because of internet and faster communication and traveling. So that's my last bit on it. Please consider this. Do not let yourself be trapped in the mind. I know I wrote black community, but this goes for everyone as well. But black community, like, we kind of have to deal with some of the impacts of our parenting. And yes, the parenting has highly been influenced by how they were parented before, which was how, you know, If you want to go all the way back without falling into the trap of finger pointing, you can go all the way back to slavery. And then once that dropped up, there was a lot of ideas that kept in, beating your kids. And I know it happens in multiple communities, but it's kind of like understanding how the idea had to trickle down through generations, but not as fast as various other, let's say, ethnicities and nations that kind of understood, that fucks up with, some understood it naturally, some didn't, because you can always see casual aspects of verbal abuse here and there. But as a whole, instead of staying reactionary, we kind of want to dismiss those habits. We kind of will just actively take that in hand and clear our inner work not to pass on those habits. And this is why when you focus on that and you notice the momentum of how better your life is, because you've cleared out what that hard drive is filtering, because it's a filter as well, it's a projector, and you're actually seeing everything that you can create because you've paid more attention to it. You won't fall back into that loop. You won't fall back into that cycle. You won't fall back into that karma. You won't get triggered or taken in by whatever reaction is created, And like that, you're giving a much better future for your kid, your community, and the world in total. Because when you start thinking about the world in total in these aspects, especially when it comes to the inner work, you go far beyond thinking the community and you access, again, a bit of channeling, but natural aspect, you access universal understanding, which goes far beyond staying in a pocket in a bubble. Again, go understanding the mistakes that happen when you stick to one ideology, one religion, one aspect. You don't think universal, you don't think the world. And then the double speak of thinking, I am preaching acceptance, except to these people. The double speak that happens, you'll catch it. And you'll understand that when that double speak happens, it doesn't create as expanded as it wants. And again, all of this is unconscious, subconscious aspects. So oftentimes it's not seen. It's not pondered. And even when, in a sense, when called out, it won't be admitted and it won't be looked at, because subconsciously it's like, okay, I'm right, fuck you. You've argued with religious people. You guys know when you have that talk with Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm making fun of you guys, but oftentimes you are trapped in the mind. When it's starting to start talking about cross-referencing all this, stuck in the mind. So that's about it. You do what you want in this aspect. You do what you want with this knowledge. It's always about that. But you're the only one that's going to be able to clear that inner work and inner world. You're the only one who's going to find the importance to do it. You're the only one who's going to understand the importance of your own inner world and your own focus. You're the only one. I'm just giving the tools or an access to the tools. There's various other methods and techniques and other tools. Go play with these. Fun. Play. Don't try to be beat per beat. Just play. Okay? Play. Pick and choose from various things and find what works with you and your inner world. And then you'll spread it out to everyone with no exception. Because guess what? If you're spreading it out to people with exception, how would you feel if the mirror thing happened back to you? Think about it. Little sneaky deaky nuances, right? Really sneaky nuances. But once you understand it and you notice the responses that happen, so once you make that switch and the things that kind of come at you afterward, oh my God. You're like, okay, I'm going to take this nuance a tad bit more seriously, but in a playful way. All right? Kick some asses, guys. And feel free to ask questions. Feel free video response. Feel free to video questions even on the Facebook page or anything. I care about this and about giving as much details and information as I can, which is why the podcast of little channeling bits is still going on. Sporadically, I know, but that's how channeling kind of works for me. Unique to me. Everyone else has their own thing. So feel free to do so. Always here to help, okay? And yeah, share, play, but no drama. You see how much time is wasted with drama? How much reaction is done out of nowhere? See how much of a trap it is? And you're the only one paying for it. So go, play, create, have fun. 2020, man, it's gonna be the best year that we all have. Already is, practically. With all the learning, the discoveries, the shit that's being revealed and understood now about ourselves and the various things we can do. 2020, man, best year. Let's go.